In anticipation for Gennedy Tartakovsky's next work, Primal, I didn't predict it to be this. I'm calling it now. This is going to be one of those fantastic shows that people will really only miss when it's gone. I've never been so impressed with the show on Adult Swim, and it proves that not every adult show has to be a comedy. Even taking out the blood in many shots, the themes expressed in this are pretty blunt. So let's see what all the praise is about. Also plug in my amino. The one thing you'll learn about this show is that there really isn't much dialogue. Like Samurai Jack, Tartakovsky's style of less is more shown throughout the show, in many facets. It allows him to play with the idea of anticipation and subversion, two critical parts to animation. In fact, the show is so silent that you don't even know this character's name. According to the production notes, it's Spear. Spear is fishing so that he can bring food home to his family, as a responsible caveman. You'll notice that the shots are long, and that the show isn't afraid to let things settle in fear of losing attention, because the audience this show is going after is not the audience that needs to be visually stimulated every second to think that something is going to entertain them. There's a reason why it's on Adult Swim after all. And if there's one thing I can say about Spear, he's focused. He may portray a few aspects throughout this episode, and I'll dive into them when they're more prominent, but a man fishing with the spear, surrounded by jungle, with only the sound of the ambience of nature, really encapsulates them. And just like that, the episode reminds you of the cold, never-ending cycle, the food cycle. Spear, while intimidating, is still food to an animal that is hungry enough. Spear fortunately does not die that easily. However, it is something to take note of, how easy death can be in this show, and it does not take any reservations to not remind you of so. The dynamic of sound is also incredible. The way the episode goes from very somber to outrageously loud. It's only something you see really in movies, which should tell you something about the way Tartakovsky sees television animation. We then get a lot of slow shots, and don't let that adjective fool you. These shots were made with purpose, allowing you to sink in the art style, which uses a lot of greens and reds, which will make complete sense in a minute. The slower pace alongside the lighter music production really lets it set in that Spear's life is a series of ebbs and flows. There are long periods of nothing, but then it could possibly be a sharp, quick period of near death. And well, everything in between. His deadpan shots really do match up with the long, distant stare of Jack. Dare I say that he may live up to the legacy. Noticing that something isn't right, Spear dives into an open tree, leaving his food to hide higher up in the trunk. The monster, while interested in the smell of potential food, is ultimately lured away by what appears to be a parent. I actually really enjoyed this scene because of the conflict of his food. It's clear that the food isn't just for him, so for him to give up the food in exchange for living, it's a tough choice that's made pretty often in the wild. What I found really interesting about this show right off the bat is that the trailer's depiction of him is not him, at least according to me. They show a lot of fighting, creating this badass caveman character who takes on all fights. Yet here we ultimately see that he's defensive and isn't going to kill anything that merely looks at him. In fact, when I watched this episode, I thought he was gonna kill that crocodile. Upon second viewing of this, you hear what sounds like a bird's noise in the background and assume it to be part of the ambience. But then I thought, why should I assume everything is just ambience? For all I know, that could be a winged creature flying past, but that could also be a potential danger. It is the wild. So for him to see that footprint and connect that sound alongside those screams, trouble is a brewing. His family dies right in front of him as their protector went out to get food. You notice that the colors turned reddish in many areas, where they were not, to represent the anger inside Spear, watching the people whom he'd lived for become part of the unforgiving food cycle. The eyes intentionally placed, staring into your soul from the second kid, into the dinosaur looking admittedly smug, It's some of the most visually stunning scenes I've seen this year. It's truly disheartening, because things happen so quickly in the wild, especially in a place where Spear's kind is severely outmatched. He throws a spear. Bang. Merely wounding the 1,000+ pound beast. Spear doesn't look to back down from his home, where some of his most cherished memories may be, as 3 frightening beasts occupy the lower corners of the screen. However, when it looks like Spear is going to have the battle of his life, like with the winged beasts up before, a larger being calls out for them, as you see the one dinosaur that was wounded linger around just a little longer, reminding Spear that things are not over just yet. Again, if there's one thing that you can say about Spear, he's focused. His anger turns to sorrow, looking over the cave that was once shelter for more than him. And just like that, the lighter musical composition is back. He takes a moment to remember his loved ones, but out of frustration erases the painting, as he has no family anymore. He takes a climb, but looks down, seeing how high he is, above the clouds, above the trees. Towering over the cliff, you probably already noticed that there's a lot of wind in this episode. It's beautifully animated. Despite being so dangerous, it's beautiful from this height, and spare no confusion. He's looking down for a reason. My interpretation of this? Well, he's contemplating his life. We've seen him gather food, risking his own life, just so that his family doesn't sleep with empty bellies. Unfortunately, other families around him have the same goal, just with a different process of their own. Surely you can see it with the dinosaurs, but also remember, friendly reminder, that fish that he caught also came from somewhere, and probably also belonged to a school of its own. He takes a step closer, thoughts racing in his head. Even though he says nothing at this moment, or any moment really, it is as if you can hear and understand his pain. Before he can make a decision that he wouldn't be able to regret, he sits. He sulks. He realizes that he doesn't have much left, if anything. It's a very powerful scene, raised to the next level, with the musical and lighting composition being top notch. Sunrise. While we see a beautiful start to a vicious day in the wild, he sees his family, who also look very sad. It could be because they miss him. It could be because they feel an internal guilt to know he did what he did after their split. It could be just how they look normally, even without imminent death staring right at them. Something tells me that this show isn't meant to be interpreted just one way. I also learned that there's wind in the sun. Never would have thought about that. He understands his mission now. It's to survive, because it's what his family would have wanted him to do, to live on. And just like that, he's back to his routine. As in the wild, it's stripped down to its very bare basics, and your day may largely be the same, out of necessity. Fishing for one, he spots an enemy, and just like that, he's on the prowl. Just listen to how the music changes quickly to match the energy of the scene, while not being too out of place for such a slow-moving show. This blue Tyrannosaurus smells trouble, but leaves, with a vengeful spear right behind him. It's clear that this dinosaur had nothing to do with the murder of his family, but the spear, why would he care? What makes him compelled to operate under a sense of morals? It's not like the other dinosaurs around him would do the same. It's eat or be eaten. That's what Spear knows for sure. Anything else? Well, that's an option. Upon approaching the giant beast, we see this dino parent feeding his family, which gives Spear a sense of frustration, shock, remorse, but above all, confusion. Would he want to be killed by something that he didn't even provoke the way that his family were? What is he even doing? He wasn't caught by a dinosaur. He didn't need to travel into a cave. He didn't even need to yell, alerting the dinosaur there, suspending the choice for even more stealthy attack. However, before he can act on his conflicted feelings, the red dinos make a surprise reappearance, and this is where the action picks up. Look at the sense of weight portrayed as Spear lugs this rock at one of the red dinosaurs. This rock is merely drawn to be animated, yet it feels like Spear is putting all of his weight into this throw. He forms a temporary alliance with this blue dinosaur, having a common worry and a common enemy. These deaths are not sugar-coated. They are fighting for their lives, and they make no subtleties about it. This is very violent. He's literally stabbing a dinosaur with one of its huge teeth, throwing spears at them. And the other blue dinosaur rips a giant chunk out of the red terrorizing beast. The action comes to a sharp fall. Spear falls to the cave floor, not proud about what he was going to do earlier. It is then when the little pair of children rush the Spear, giving their unconditional appreciation to what Spear did. The way that dinosaurs are written in the story, it's remarkable. My fear going into the series was with the lack of human characters, would that lead to a limited story? It could, but it absolutely didn't. This was a really touching scene, as Spear has something to fight for. It is only then when you notice, however, that 3 dinosaurs have entered, but earlier there was a large shadowy figure that they followed. No matter the species, it's the same feeling, to be separated from the ones that you are bound by nature to protect. The much larger red dino pins down the blue T-Rex, and Spear comes to his aid. They trade potential jabs, before Spear feels his first exposure to blood. A very vengeful T-Rex pursues the murderer of its offspring, sinking its teeth into the dinosaur's neck. They played a game of speed to match the foe's game of power. Alone, their efforts are fruitless. Together, their combined efforts may be enough to take down this vile beast. I also just love the tiny smile, as Spear and his new partner charge at the common foe. With the help of his friend's much larger legs, they charge up the monster, from its tail up to his head, and with one sharp stab, our angry caveman Spear pierces his way through the top of the monster's head and out through its mouth. His eyes fill up with blood as he takes his last roar, tumbling down to never hurt another family again. However, because the danger is over, that doesn't mean that everything is all sunshine now. His partner now has to live with the same fate he did, and he understands it all too well. He was going to do what that monster ended up doing. However, he knows that no one should bear that pain, even in the unforgiving environment as the wild. Spear leaves, roaming for, well, wherever the wind takes him. However, he'd end up meeting a familiar face. Through tragedy brought an unlikely alliance, Spear and his new friend Fang band together to defend themselves for whatever danger brings their way in a vicious, primordial world. This is an incredible episode that explores very violent themes that will satisfy those who want to see an action-packed ancient adventure or those who came from Tartakovsky's legendary storytelling. If you haven't seen this, I'd recommend it. I haven't been this blown away from serious but engaging storytelling since when I covered The Mask. I'd check it out for more of this atmosphere. Special thanks to the supporters of October, and until next time, take care. Alpha out.